developers. Really, anyone who wants to learn programming will learn about new technologies and coding techniques each show. My goal for this show is to give you a taste of the kind of work developers do and the tools you use for every project. Today, I'll give you an introduction to a JavaScript framework called Vue.js. Vue.js is a front-end framework that is run in the browser as opposed to a back-end framework that runs on the server. There are many benefits to using a front-end framework, including increased responsiveness of your web page, making highly interactive applications easier to create, as well as taking some processing load off the servers in the backend. In this session, we'll go over some of the basics of setting up a Vue.js project in C9. Then I'll demonstrate Vue.js by making a simple calculator app. During each episode of Framework, I'll be inviting you to follow along with me. As you're watching, don't be afraid to pause the video or watch it more than once so you can enter the code or type in the commands right along with me. Thanks for watching Framework. Let's get started. Okay, so once you have signed into C9, let's go ahead and create a new workspace. For this, we could call it Vue Calculator. This would be a public workspace, and we'll use the blank template. Create workspace. Okay, so once the workspace is created, we're going to get Vue.js CLI to help us set up the project. To install the CLI, we can type in npm install Vue CLI. So npm is just the node package manager here, and it comes by default on C9. So once you have that, hit enter. Okay, so there's a lot of output here. We don't need to worry too much about the details. And you may actually get a couple warnings too, which is fine. So the next thing we're going to do is to initialize the Vue.js project. To do that, we're going to type in Vue init webpack to use the webpack template. And then we're going to call it the app name calculator. Okay, then hit enter here. So for project name, we could just hit enter to take a default calculator. The description, we could put a demo calculator app using Vue.js. And the author, you could type in your name. And for the Vue build here, you could use the arrow key to choose which one. We'll just go with runtime plus compiler and hit enter. Install Vue router? No, we do not need Vue router for this. ESLint to link your code? Yes. A lint is just a tool to help you make sure that your code is clean, meaning that it sticks with convention. Pick an ESLint preset. We could just go with standard. Unit test with Karma plus Mocha. Nope. End-to-end tests with Nightwatch. Nope. And here it is. The CI created a project in our folder called calculator. And if we expand it, we'll see build, config, source, and static, as well as an index page, index.html. So now that the project's set up, let's install all of the necessary dependencies and packages. So in the terminal, we're going to type in cd calculator. To move into the calculator folder. So now we're within the calculator folder. Let's type in npm install to install all the necessary dependencies for the project. Okay, so after a couple minutes, it's going to install all the dependencies. So once that's done, we can actually now run the project and see what we get. So let's type in npm run dev and hit enter. It's going to start the dev server. So now, to view our application right now, we could click preview on the top, and then click preview running application. It's going to get us we could either preview it here, or we could copy the URL here and open another tab. You're going to be brought into this warning screen where it's going to tell you that this is only for testing purposes, that you cannot host this application here permanently, and it's not guaranteed that it will stay up, which is fine. You can read through this, and when you're ready, click open the app. So this is a default landing page for Vue.js. And it's working. So we're going to make some changes to this to build a calculator app. Let's go back to C9. Could close the preview. And let's take a look at some of these files. So index.html is the main page. This is where you have your HTML tags, your head tags, and your body tags. And notice that you also have a div tag. So this is where Vue.js will put all your code. But we're actually not writing our code here. So Vue.js application is actually divided into multiple components. And we can find all the components in the source folder. So if we expand it, you find a main.js. You also find an app.vue. So if we open app.vue, we can see that there is some code in there already. Specifically, there's an image, and then there's this thing called hello. And at the bottom, we can see this hello is imported from components/hello. Now, let's see what happens if we comment out this image. So if we save it, Vue is actually automatically updated. So if we go back to the calculator page that we opened, notice that the logo is gone. So before, let me uncomment it. The logo is back. And if I remove it, and it's gone. So this image tag seems to be referring to the logo that we had. And this hello, if I comment it out, and there's nothing here. So this hello here is actually a different component, as you could have guessed from this import statement. We're not going to look at that today. So we're going to just work with the app.vue file, and then we're going to put all of our code in here. So the first thing we're going to do is to remove the existing HTML files here. We're also going to, in the script tag, remove the import hello, as well as the component. So the first thing we're going to do is to build out a table that represents a calculator. Oh, we're also going to change the ID from app to calc to make this a little bit more customized. So we have to change it in the template, which contains HTML files. And then we have to change it here in the script, as well as the style here, which contains the CSS files. Next, we'll build a table to hold all of the buttons and outputs in the calculator. So we'll have a table, and then the first row is going to be a column span of 4. That's going to have a paragraph. And we'll put 0 here for now. The second row, excuse me. We have a table data of column span of 3. And this is going to be our clear button. We're going to put a button in here. And it's going to say C for clear. Or you could type out C if you would like. The next one, we're going to put another table data. You're going to put another button in here. And that's going to be our plus. So that's going to be our second row. So in the third row, we're going to type out some numbers. We're going to have a button for 7. And then we just copy and paste this. So 7, this is going to be 8. This is going to be 9. And this is going to be a minus. We need another row here. Oh, excuse me. Mistake here, TD. Okay, so the second row is going to be 4, 5, 6, and an operator. So 4, 5, 6, and 7. Oh, 4, 5, 6, and the multiplication operator. We could just copy this again. And here we're going to do 1, 2, 3. And then device symbol. If you don't know how to type the device symbol, you can simply Google it up and then just copy and paste from the web. And then for the last row, we're going to have a 0, which is button. And this is going to be 2. Call span. And then we have a decimal. And then lastly, the equal. So let's go to that. Let's go to the other tab and see how our calculator is looking right now. Okay, we're getting something. Looks almost like a calculator. Now let's apply some CSS styles to it. So go to the bottom where it says style. Here, we'll add a border to it. So to the table, so we do table, TD, solid black. Okay, it's starting to look like something. And then we'll also style the buttons a little bit. We could do button. Let's give it a width of, let's try 34 and see how it looks. Okay. And then we'll set the margin. Give it a little bit more space. Maybe too much. Let's try 6. Okay, a little better. Now you're welcome to play around with these numbers to make it look nice, the way you like it. So here I'm going to do border none to get rid of the border. All right. So the background needs to be transparent. All right. Then we need the cursor. Oh. we need the cursor to change when we hover on it, to let people know that we can actually click on it. So we do cursor, pointer. Okay, great. And last but not least, let's change the font size. 1.4 EM. Let's also change line height to 1.4. Let's do 1.6 EM, see what happens. Okay, now it looks like a calculator. Maybe we could reduce the line height a little bit. Let's do 1.5. See, that looks. Okay, so, oh, and here we gotta do something about the paragraph. A paragraph tag. So here we're going to do a margin of 10 up, and we're also gonna align the text to the center. Okay. Oh, text to the right, not to the center. There we go. And let's increase the font size a little bit. Font size 1.4, just like the others, and the line height of 1.5. Oh, 1.5. Okay, so this is looking like a calculator. But if we click on it, nothing happens. And that's what we're going to get to next. So the next thing we're going to do is attach some events to these buttons. So in order to attach events, we're going to use an attribute that's specific to Vue.js. So for the button tags, we're going to add v on click to add a click event. And here we can specify what to run when this button is clicked. So let's define a function here within the script. Methods. This is where we could define all of our methods. We're going to have a method called input. And this input is called, trailing space not allowed. Okay, that's fine. Missing space. Okay, so we have to put a space here. So this is where the lint is coming in. It's looking at my code. It says that there needs to be a space after function, and when there's no space, it's not happy. Even that's technically still valid if I don't leave a space here. And then here, once we do that, let's log it to see what happens. Okay. So once we have the input function, we can actually call it here, input, and then let's give the C. So now, when we click the C button, we should get something. Let's do an alert instead of console log. So now when we click on C, we should get an alert popping out. And there it is. So we're going to use 3 separate methods for this calculator. We're going to define a method called input. We're also going to define a method called clear, which, as you guessed it, clears the calculator. And last but not least, we're going to define a calculate method. Put some space there before the program complains. And the calculate program is going to calculate all the inputs when the user hits the equal. So here, and we're also going to define some data for this. So we have a data, which actually takes in the function. Oh, gotta put space. And then we can return a dictionary of the data. So in here, we're only defining one data. We're also missing a comma here. We're only be using one data here, which is the Q, and it's an empty string. There are some errors, but that's okay for now. So what this is going to do is every time the user enters a number, it's going to be added to this. So for instance, if the user enters 1, we're going to add 1 to the string, and then if the user enters a 2, the 2 is going to get appended to the string, so now we have 12. So this is what the queue is. So with the queue set up, when we click clear, we just want this queue to be an empty string again. And when we calculate it, we just want to evaluate this queue. So we could do this.queue, go to eval. So eval is a built-in JavaScript function, and it evaluates a string as a JavaScript code. So we could do this.queue. So it's going to evaluate everything within the queue. So if you have 1 plus 2 as a string, eval is going to run it as if it was JavaScript code. Now, you may notice that there's a warning message here that says eval can be harmful. That's because the lint program that we specified earlier doesn't really like when we use this. And since what we're doing here is trivial, using eval is fine. So to disable this warning message, we could type disable. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is actually implement this input, where before we just had an alert popping up. So here, in the input, we're going to check to see if the input that we have is a number. So we're going to assign isNum the result of comparing button when we pass into the parseInt function to the button itself. So if the button isn't number, this would be equal, because parseInt with an int is going to give you int, which is basically itself. But if you have a string or anything else, then this is not going to be equal, because parseInt is going to try to turn it into an integer, and integer isn't a string anymore. So the next thing we're going to take a look is to check that the button is whether the button is a decimal or not. So we could do var is des. So, and if this.queue, so this is going to check if the queue is empty. So if the queue is empty, or is a number, or if the input is a number, or if the input is decimal, we take the input. We add the button to the input. This is necessary because we don't want the first item in the queue to be an operator, because +5, or rather divided by 5, doesn't really mean anything. It's not a valid expression, mathematical expression, because you need something before divided by. 10 divided by is a valid. 10 divided by 5 is a valid mathematical expression. So with our methods defined, let's go back to the HTML here and hooked up everything. So here, when we click clear, instead of calling input, we just call clear. And here, we're going to hook this button to a input function, and then we're going to put the plus symbol. For 7, we're going to do input. And then we're going to just give a straight up 7 here. We'll actually copy and paste. Just going to make this faster. We'll change this to an 8. Change this to a 9. And then this is going to be a string containing the minus symbol. This is going to be 4, 5, oop, 6, and this is going to be a multiply symbol. And note that this multiply, so for the button, I'm actually using the letter X because it looks like a multiply button. But the symbol that I'm using is actually the start thing, which you could get by holding down Shift and hitting the 8 button, the numeric 8. Because that's actually the valid multiplication symbol in JavaScript. So if you keep going, just gonna copy this. And here we have 1. Here we have 2. 3. And instead of using this divide symbol, we're just using a slash, because again, that's the valid divide operator in JavaScript. Okay, so here we have 0, which is a plain number. Here we have a string containing the decimal. And last but not least, we have the equal. Or rather, for the last one, for the equal sign, we really want to call calculate, as we have defined here. Okay, so that should be it. Let's test out the calculator. So we have 5. Oh, something's not working. Let's take a look. Oh, there's one more thing that we forgot. So here, when we're displaying it, right now, see, we have a 0 here. So it's always going to be displaying a 0. So we can actually display dynamic data by using double curly braces here. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to display the Q. But at the beginning, the Q is an empty string. So there's not going to be anything. So we want to check for that condition. If this Q is an empty string, we want to display 0 instead. So we can use this tertiary operator here. So this Q equals, question mark, this Q, colon, 0. So if you've never seen this operator before, this means that we're going to evaluate this expression. And this expression, since it's a string, it's going to return false if it's empty. So we're going to evaluate this. If this is true, if this is not an empty string, we're going to display whatever is in the queue. Otherwise, we're going to display 0. So now let's save this and then check this out. Oh, there it is, 5 and 5. When we clear it and start over, 9 times 5. Hit equals 45 divided by 3, 15. Cool, that's it. A simple calculator. Feel free to implement more functionalities to it, such as adding parentheses to enforce order of operation. In this session, you learn about Vue.js, a relatively new front-end framework that is gradually gaining popularity among web and mobile developers. We created a Vue.js project in C9, and we created a simple calculator app with Vue.js. But why stop here? If you enjoyed this show, why not give the Framework Professional Developer Program a shot? We help you become a professional developer in as little as 20 weeks. Our program is online, but everyone in the program has their own instructor, so your questions are always answered. You could try the program for free. Just sign up at learntoprogram.tv/p/try-framework. See you next time.